Welcome to The Explainer, made by Forge College. Today, we're basically drafting the blueprint for the ultimate dApp UX machine. I mean, if you've ever used a decentralized application, you know firsthand that the user experience can sometimes feel like flying a spaceship with a manual written in an alien language. While blindfolded. Yeah, it's rough, but it absolutely doesn't have to be that way. In this explainer, we're going to learn exactly how to integrate the Ethereum Name Service, or ENS, directly into your front end, because we want your users to actually enjoy interacting with your smart contracts. Now, to give you guys a little context on where we are in the grand scheme of things, we just handled the back-end pipes in our previous lesson, which was node selection techniques. We made absolutely sure our data infrastructure was rock solid. So now it's time to connect those heavy-duty back-end pipes to the user-facing faucet. We're taking the raw, complex data of the blockchain and refining it into a clean, intuitive interface that your users are genuinely going to enjoy using. Think of it like putting a beautiful, polished dashboard on a super high-performance engine.
Here's the schematic overview for today, which is part of our NFTs and decentralized identity track. Number 1, the raw address problem. Number 2, forward and reverse resolution. Number 3, building the address display. Number 4, designing the send flow. Number 5, fail-safes and fallbacks. And finally, number 6, final blueprint review.
Section 1, the raw address problem. Let's start with the most glaring design flaw in Web3 right now. We absolutely have to stop forcing users to get sweaty palms triple-checking 42-character alphanumeric addresses. Let's be real, it is frankly terrifying to hover over a send button, just praying you didn't miss a single digit. Contrast that raw, highly mechanical address with a friendly name, something like alice.eth. It's totally readable and you know exactly who you're interacting with. So our main goal today is to move our interface entirely to this friendly, human-readable standard. Section 2, forward and reverse resolution. To fix this UX nightmare, we use two mechanisms that function a lot like your smartphone's phone book. First up is forward resolution. This simply translates a human-readable name, like alice.eth, into the raw protocol address the blockchain actually needs to execute a transaction. Second is reverse resolution. This does the exact opposite, translating a raw address back into a friendly name. Because just like you don't memorize your best friend's 10-digit phone number, we really shouldn't make users memorize raw hex strings.
So how are we actually going to build this thing? Well, using a read-only ethers.js JSON RPC provider in our source/ens.ts helper file, we're going to implement these two simple mechanical lookups. Step 1 is provider.resolve_name, which handles our forward resolution. You just pass it alice.eth, and it simply hands you the 0x address. Step 2 is provider.lookup_address, handling the reverse. Pass it the 0x address, and if the user has set up their ENS records correctly, it hands you back alice.eth. It literally is that straightforward on the code side.
Section 3, building the address display. Now let's physically draft the UI component that users will interact with. In our address display component, we handle various scenarios to ensure the interface never breaks. If there's a valid reverse record, great! We show the friendly ENS name as the main text with the raw address underneath for transparency. But what if there's no name found? Instead of crashing the UI, we gracefully fall back to showing a truncated 0x address along with a handy copy button. And while the lookup is pending, we just show a clean loading state. That way, the user is never left staring at a broken layout.
Section 4, designing the send flow.
Displaying names is awesome, but acting on them is where the real utility lies. Here's the exact sequence for a smooth send form experience that gracefully accepts both free text and raw addresses. Step 1, the user types their input. Step 2, we wait 500 milliseconds after the typing stops. This is a technique called debouncing. You know, if we fired a network request for the letter A, then AL, then ALI, oh man, we'd completely spam our RPC provider. Step 3, we check if the input contains a dot, implying it's an ENS name, and we resolve it. Step 4 is our pre-signed verification. And finally, step 5, we go ahead and enable the send button.
Section 5, fail-safes and fallbacks. Now, as any good software architect knows, no blueprint is totally complete without fail-safes. So here's a highly important question. What happens if the resolver returns a 0 address or null? Out in the wild west of Web3, this happens all the time. If a name is missing or malformed, our front end shouldn't just throw a fatal exception and crash the user's entire session, because frankly, that is just terrible UX. So we absolutely have to actively catch those errors and return null instead of letting the app break. And when we get that null, we just render those truncated fallback addresses we talked about earlier. We also need to cache recent lookups in memory to reduce RPC load.
I mean, if a user sees the exact same address 5 times in a list, we should really only be looking it up once. And always explicitly verify addresses pre-signing. Implementing these exact kinds of safety nets is exactly the robust engineering you master when diving into Forge College programs. It's all about building resilient systems.
If you take away just one single thing from this explainer today, please let it be this golden rule right here. Separate read-only resolution from the signing prompt. This is the absolute core of our dApp UX machine. Always show the completely resolved raw address to the user on your UI before they approve anything in their wallet. Please don't trigger a wallet pop-up while you're still trying to figure out where the transaction is actually going. Give the user visual confirmation first. Doing this builds massive trust and prevents some seriously costly mistakes.
Section 6. Final Blueprint Review.
Let's step back and look at our fully assembled transaction lifecycle. At 0 milliseconds, the user inputs example.eth. At 500 milliseconds, our debounce timer finishes, which triggers the read-only resolve name function. By 800 milliseconds, the network responds, and our UI instantly updates to display the underlying raw address for visual confirmation. Finally, at 2000 milliseconds, just 2 seconds later, the user confidently clicks send. We have literally transformed back-end convenience into highly visible, actionable trust.
And there you have it, the schematics for an incredibly intuitive Web3 interface. But, fixing the front end is just the beginning. What happens when a malicious actor tries to spoof a reverse record? Are you ready to debug complex resolver failures and secure these records in the next lesson? Be sure to visit forge.college to master these advanced subjects and access even more Web3 blueprints to continue your journey. Thanks for watching this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.